It was because I tried to remember everything she taught me. I tried to remember every argument and every conversation, and everything I did after that became what would she want me to do? Because she was forgiving, she was loving, she was caring, she was, you could stab her and she would still forgive you and become your friend later on. Where I was vengeful. I was like, you take my cookie, I want to punch you, you know? And she was forgiving. So we were opposites that way. So my anger is just growing inside of me, but I'm trying to live for her. So outwardly, I'm walking in her footsteps, but inwardly, I'm dying inside. And that would lead me to another bunch of situations. And that would lead me to, I mean, it got to the point where, just to kind of fast forward a little bit, it got to the point where in the projects, in the different projects that were not mine, that were not the ones I came from, I would find myself again. And this was a time where Bloods and Crips were coming over this way and stuff, and it was a whole new thing. And it was a race for what set could claim what project, which, because it used to be projects against projects. This became a set against a set. This set has this projects and this set has this projects, and that's how they try to expand their territory. So now you have a bunch of these young kids just being exposed to this, just getting caught up in it, just getting pulled into it and wanting to be tough. And you have me, and most of these, I had kids younger than me that are twice my size. I'm a little guy, right? So for the most part, I'm not that big. So it got to the point where I snapped several times. One of the incidents, I ended up with a knife to my throat by someone who said that they love me, by someone who is blood related. I ended up for that same person, I ended up challenging a group of 6 of these kids that belong to a set. I won't mention it because it's nothing, not talking bad about any of these guys. It's just I don't believe in that stuff because we're all brothers and sisters. I'm not for sets and gangs or anything like that. But these kids were just trying to be part of that, and they were trying to be tough, whatever. They stepped over in line with they stepped over in line with someone I cared about. And this is after I already lost my sister. So at this point, I'm not playing that. Another one will not be taken from me by the hands of another man. It's not going to happen. And I came to that conclusion with God a long time ago. It's not going to happen because there's no way I'm going to allow it to happen twice. Vengeance will come about in that instance. So I say, okay, I'm gonna walk for my debt past sister, whatever. I'm gonna do good. But inside all this rage. So these guys cross a line, and I go from, hey, I'm talking to them, I'm trying to do the right thing. Don't do that. It's disrespectful. Blah blah blah. And they have something to prove in that life, in that environment. You're in front of your group of guys. There's 6 of you, most of which are twice my size. There's no way you should let me respectfully speak to you and respectfully tell you not to disrespect my loved ones as a brother to brother, as a man to man. There's no way you could do that because they take that as they'll be seen as weak or afraid. Even though there's no ill intentions in my speaking that, it's simply, please don't do that again. Not a threat, but that's how it's perceived. You got to prove yourself. So, of course, the littlest one has got to be the loudest one. And they step up and blah, 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 blah. I said something twice politely. There was not a third time. I got up from wherever I was. I lost complete control again. Next thing I know, I'm flying across my living room and out to a 6th floor balcony. And I am threatened. I'm not, this is a figurative story. I'm not saying it's literal, right? I am making a promise to these individuals, to all of them, based on the actions of one, that they will regret their actions. And it gets to the point where whatever came out of me, was so bad that it took three large people to hold me, who was a lot smaller at the time, to hold me in place. Three large people to keep me from committing to the promise that I had just made. Every day that I walked out for a month straight, every day that I walked through here for a month straight, not a single one of those people would make eye contact with me. Not a single one. That's not for me to brag. That's not for me to say I was a tough guy or anything like that. That is not what this is about. That is the sad, sad truth of how much I chose anger, how much I let it control me, how bad it was to put that kind of fear in people that should not be there. That's not people think that's power. People think that's power, and that's what they teach you in the streets. That would be, for the regular street person, that would be something to be proud of. Yo, I made these cats, you know, they're afraid, they know not to mess with me. I got a reputation, right? That's what I got a reputation. They know not to mess with me. Because by building that reputation, I can protect my family. By building that reputation, I can protect myself and my loved ones. All I have to do is enough harm that I don't have to do anymore again. That's not what it's about. I don't tell this story for a reputation. I don't tell this story for anybody that was with it, that was in it with me. They know. Yeah, everybody knows the truth. It's not about that. It's not a good thing. It's a negative thing, and it needs to be exposed in each of us, because this is what these young kids are not being taught these days. They're still caught up in that system of oppression, and the parents are losing them without knowing it, without seeing it. And it's not because it's a bunch of shitty parents. It's because we're all caught up in it. And so we lose each other, and we turn on each other, and we make these lies, and we tell ourselves that it's for the right reasons. You know, I gotta be tough so I can survive. I gotta be tough so I can make it. There is nothing pleasant about seeing the fear that people look at you with. Especially, you think you're tough and you think, oh, I've got these people scared of me or whatever. You think that's the case, right? But then when you go to the people that you say you love, when I go to someone that I say I will lift you up, and you return to me with a look of fear, that's not something to be proud of. That's tragic. That's a tragic truth. My own mother has looked at me with fear. My brother has looked at me with fear. I disappear off the radar for a little bit, and the first thing that goes to my family's thoughts is what I'm going to do, where I'm going to pop up in very negative ways. And I can understand it, because all of that has been in me. It was in me. So I understand it. But when it was a time to be afraid of that, no one saw it. No one knew. And now everyone wants to fear it when I finally conquered it. I'm not done. Because if I stop moving, I won't get any closer, right? I have not arrived. But I finally got to a point where I know it will not defeat me any longer. This point that we should be celebrating, this point that we should be learning from, this point that we should be reaching into and grabbing and saying, how do I do that in my life? How do I change myself? How do I love myself? How do I lift myself up? Instead of doing that, we're soaking in our fear. That we say, oh, I'm afraid for you because I care about you. But I know not to be afraid for you, because I don't care about you. I care for you. I love you. Caring about you is like, it's like saying I know about that person. I know about that person. Not I know that person. I know about that person. When I say I care for you, I'm saying I love you. I want to lift you up. I care for everything that happens in your life. I care for who you become. I care for your evolution. Right? So when we go to the hospital and we deal with these doctors, these asshats. No offense to the ones that save lives and actually contribute and do good, but to a lot of ones I've had to deal with, we go there for patient care, right? Patient care. But I can talk to 100 people that I know, and each one of us can give stories of how we went to a hospital, we went to a doctor, and we received no care. We were treated, but there was no care. Because they're not caring for us. Imagine how much healthier people would be today, and how mentally, physically, everything. Imagine how much more progress we would make medically if it was less about the money and the system that we built and more about caring for the people that arrive in those hospitals. And it's not that it's impossible, because I've been in different parts of the world. And in different parts of the world, they have a system, a health care system, where they care for their patients. I've seen it. I've seen doctors that care. They exist. They're out there. There's many of them. It's not just a few. But so many of us are neglected because we don't get the doctors that care. We get the doctors that want to treat and get up that billing for the insurance, for the incentives, for the money to keep going. And they tell themselves they care because when someone is severe enough and it's obvious enough, they can say, I saved that person. Yes, you can. But what about the 10 that you did not save, but you could have? What about the 20 that will die 5-10 years from now because of something you could have caught today? Right? So, back to the story. Sister passed. I'm trying to think down my timeline for the next big thing. Anger. Start getting to fighting again and dangerous situation. That's the least. That situation I was talking about was the least of the dangerous situations I ended up in. It is the least. So for the sake of this story, this fictional story, right? Science fiction? The science fiction story. For the sake of this, I'm going to skip a bunch of that. But just to say that that's the least of the dangerous situations, right? I found myself. Let's. So anyway, so I got to the point where I had a bloodlust. I had this deep desire.
Like Dexter?
You joke. But yes, it's not. I'm serious. I had a bloodlust. I dared anybody to just give me a reason. I didn't just dare them. I begged them to give me a reason. I went through all the worst places, through all the worst people, through everything they said you shouldn't do in the streets in order to survive. I did. And I did it on purpose because I just wanted so badly for somebody to just cross that line, just bring it, give me an excuse. I just needed an excuse because on the outside, I was still trying to walk for my sister, right? So I'm telling myself, this is what I got to do. This is what I got to do. But I just need an excuse. Just give me an excuse so that I can unleash this anger and get it all out of me. And when I say it was a bloodlust, there's no exaggeration. Because I didn't care if it was their blood or mine. I did not care. I did not care if it was their blood or mine. There was zero fear of, and at that point, there was nothing earthly that I was afraid of. Nothing earthly. And I learned that it's not because I'm big or I'm a certain size or I have weapons or I don't have weapons or I have poor. It doesn't matter who I know and don't. It's not because of that the people were looking at me with fear. It's because a person gets a certain look in their eyes when they have that bloodlust, when they have nothing to lose, when they have a desire to go to the darkest depths. You can see it and you can feel it off of a person. And I didn't understand that I was that person at that time. I just knew I just needed to get it out of me, but they saw it. They all saw it. And they knew. And I understand now that's where it wasn't because I was respected. It wasn't because I had a reputation. It wasn't because any of those, it wasn't because any of that crap. It was because they saw it. They saw the evil. They saw that just pure determination for death. Woo, my fascination with death began. And I almost lost that battle. The only thing that saved me is that somehow, magically, spiritually, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe, I know what it was. Somehow, every single situation that I ended up in, that I was like, test me, I would snap, and something or someone would always interfere. In just the right moment, in just the right way, I was always pulled back from that moment. I was always yanked back from that moment. I was always blocked from that moment. Because I looked for that moment. I looked for it hard. And every time, there were multiple instances. Every time I couldn't go through it, something stopped me. And it wasn't internal. It wasn't like, I'm talking about something physically stopped me. Something was that there was someone there that was like, no, give me whatever, or hold you back, or there was something getting in the way of me accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. And I got lucky. I was fortunate that the truth of a lot of these kids in the street, the truth of a lot of these thugs and these crooks is that they're just like me. They see what they perceive to be power. They see what they know to be a way out. They chase a way to build that reputation, to protect themselves, to protect their families, to protect their loved ones. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's about trying to climb the hell out of that jungle. It's about trying to do better for your family and all that stuff. It's just you do it the wrong way because it's the only way we've been taught, or the only way we've been allowed to have access to. Mm-hmm. These guys didn't want to kill me because I'm just human, just like anybody. They could have. All it takes is one bullet. These guys didn't want to kill me. The majority of them didn't. I mean, these places where it's 12 dudes. You know, if it's 12 dudes, even if I was freaking Bruce Lee, I'm going down. It's just a matter of how many I take with me. Right? But none wanted to give their lives to be that one person. None wanted to take mine. So if we go back to that blue light situation and we looking at each other and we all here, what could be so bad that I want to snuff your light out? That I want to see it dissolve completely when I know you're my brother? If I truly understand myself, then I can truly, and I understand my God, I can truly understand and see you. And if I can understand and see you, I understand your sin. I understand your shame, even when you don't. I can see it. I can make sense of it. And if I can understand you, I can forgive you. That's forgiveness. If I can see you, I can forgive you. And when you can forgive, you can let go, which is the hardest thing I've ever learned how to do, and I'm still working on it. But when you can forgive, you can let go. So if I'm saying I can forgive this man who committed this act that didn't just kill my sister, but killed my father and affected most of my family, lives were changed forever. Lives were changed forever because of this one action. And I say I can forgive him to the point where I no longer want to snuff out his energy. We're not going to be friends. I'm not giving him a damn thing of my energy. I don't want to see him anywhere near my family. He crosses the line. Yeah, I'm going to protect what's mine. Absolutely. But I don't want to see his light snuffed out because I understand and I can forgive enough. I can forgive enough to say, I want to let your blue light be. You do you, and we're going to do this. And whatever negative energy you've brought upon yourself, that's your personal hell that you will have to deal with. You draw that negative energy into yourself. You took a life. He's going to suffer it. I know he's going to suffer it. Me putting out that blue light, if anything, is a mercy. Because for all I know, he's just where I was, craving death, but he can't find it. That's hell. That's certainly as pretty close as it gets. So I'm moving on. I almost lose myself. These things keep going in the way, getting in the way. They keep stopping me. They keep preventing me from doing the things that I want to do. And suddenly I meet this girl. And she, at the time, and I learned this later, I didn't understand it, but she was attracted to my negative energy because we're all messed up. We all got stuff. We all got issues, and negative energy is attractive. I learned that it is what we pull. We run towards negative energy and we run away from positive energy. That's what we do. Humanity as a whole. We run away from the positive and we run towards the negative. We don't want to sit in the positive that's boring, but we want to play in the negative that's fun. But at the end, we hope to be reigning in heaven and the positive energy and all the good and all that stuff and leave all that negative behind. It doesn't work that way. You have to live in both. You have to understand both. You have to see both. You have to find that balance in both, find that way to internalize that negative energy and process it and turn it into something that can be used for positive when it comes out of you, even if it was negative when it went into you. That's how we're supposed to figure out to balance with the two, because you will never get rid of either or. So, this girl, she is attracted to my negative energy, and she wants to play with my demons, let's call them, right? Figuratively speaking. And I didn't understand that that's what was happening, but we start messing around, and this goes on for like a year, becomes a big thing. And she writes poetry at the time. And so she ends up sharing that with me and opening up to me and showing herself to me. And I fell in love with her. And when I fell in love with her, she had actually she sent me some lyrics or something like that. And in the lyrics, it said something about love. And I took that as her saying she loves me. So I was like, oh, great, I love you too. Oops. That wasn't what the case was. But she would come to fall in love with me very quickly at that time as well. And I, with her, I decided I wanted to show her my love. Now, I'm still dealing by myself with all these feelings and the voices and the sight, the things I see and all this other stuff. Just all of it inside of me. And I still have no outlet. And we're not doing therapy because therapy for minorities at that time and in those neighborhoods. And one, it costs money to get a good therapist. We don't have that. We're living off of the government. Two, the government's not going to provide you with anybody decent because they get these budget therapists, these counselors that don't really have to do it and don't care for you and don't, because of this system. So no, we're not going to go there. Plus, if we do, we're not going to be able to get jobs. We're not going to be able to, this is the mindset. This is the mentality. This is what's happening. They'll lock us up. So I'm dealing with this on my own. I decide I want to show her, express my love to her. So I sit down, I consult a family member, and I go back and forth with, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done poetry. I've always thought it was for girls. I was like, guys don't do that, right? So I get some good feedback and some advice, and I sit down and I just start writing, and I just see what comes out. I just try, and I get about a sentence through before my hand takes over, and I'm just writing and writing and writing, and I get to the third page. I get to the third page at this point. So I get to the third page, and by the end of the third page, at this point, I'll put it to you this way. When my sister passed, I was so hard or whatever that I couldn't cry. I didn't shed a tear. This is the closest person in the world to me. And I started to think, again, internalize. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I cry? I thought I was nuts. I'm like, I love her, right? Like, why am I not crying? Everybody else is a mess. My mother I've never seen a person break the way that. And my mother's the strongest to this day. She's the strongest person I've ever met in my life, and I've been through some things. I've seen some people. She's the strongest person I've ever met in my life. She's a soldier, and she broke in a way that I never saw her break. And yet, here I am, who was Mr. Sensitive before, but learn to be tough. I can't cry. I'm writing third page of this thing. And eventually I did cry for my sister and I broke down and stuff. But I'm writing third page of this thing, and by the end of the third page, there's just tears coming down, and I'm feeling some kind of weird way, and I'm trying not to get the paper wet, and I stop and I'm like, holy crap, 3 pages, and I'm about to start the fourth. And I'm trying to, I stop because I'm just not realizing all this is happening because of the liquid coming down. And I'm trying to make sense of it because I don't actually understand what I feel. I cannot put enough emphasis on, I couldn't understand what I was feeling. It was weird. It was just this feelings. I was like, what is this? Feelings. It was gross. I didn't, ugh. So I get done with it, and I clean myself up, and I'm like, all right, I don't know what that was. We're not gonna do that again. I go back and I read through it to get an idea of what I just wrote. I start crying halfway through it. I start crying halfway through it, and I'm literally, I was mad at myself. I'm literally like, what is happening? This is the first time for me in years that I'm just crying. Like that. Mm-hmm. Out of all the things I went through by this time, this is the first. I've been in knife fights. Like, this is the first time I'm crying, and I didn't, it was weird. It truly was weird. I really didn't understand what was happening to me. But I delivered it. I went back to this beloved family member of mine and got some good feedback, and I went with it. And I gave it to her, to this girl that I just fallen in love with, and she cried. And that's I think that's probably, I don't know what she'll say, because she remembers the first time she saw me, kind of stuff, but I'm pretty sure that's the day she fell in love with me. So from there I got into writing poetry, and I would just sit and write. And as I did that, and as I cried, and as I had all these different weird stuff happening to me, I started to understand them, and I started to learn them, and I started to understand that this is what people call feelings. And I say it that way, and it sounds funny, but that's really how it was for me. That's really, like, I really was so blind, so consumed by anger, so consumed by my corruption, that I didn't understand what feelings were. I didn't even remember them anymore. I didn't know how to use them, So I can only imagine. The fact that the people around me only saw this kid that was doing well through all of that, I don't even know, because I didn't know how to share feelings. I really didn't understand them. So the more I write, the more I go through, the more I understand these feelings and that I have them. And I knew about anger because I've been dealing with that. I knew about pain because I've been dealing with that. But I didn't know about love. I didn't know about sacrifice. I didn't know about any of these positive things. I didn't know about them. I've been consumed by all the negative energy. So this female literally saved my life. Multiple people have played roles. Every person that stopped me from doing any of those things I wanted to do has saved my life. I've been saved a lot of times. I'm very blessed. But this one person, she really, she opened my eyes. She took off the veil for me. She showed me how. She didn't intend to. She didn't mean to. She didn't even know she was doing it. But it was all the right times and all the right connections and all the right energy. And it led to this veil coming uncovered and for me to have to face myself for real for the very first time. And that's where my journey on that began. So, fast forward to the next situation. This is where a lot more spiritual stuff started to happen for me. At this point, this is where I was able to let go of the bloodlust. This is where I was able to let go of the anger. It was still there, and I still had a long way to go to work on it because there were still incidents later on. But this is where I was able to see how ugly I was. And this is where I was able to say I don't want to be that. I don't want to be this person that everybody's afraid of. I don't want to be this person that I just don't want to be this person. You know, I don't want to be this person. So I started on a journey to not be that person anymore. And I said I was going to be better. And I started on looking inward and trying to fix all my corruption and my sins, identify them and attack them. And that's a long journey. That is a long journey, because at this point, and I'm still young at this point, I'm very young at this point, right? And this was around the time that I was with I was with you, next to you, around that time. Before I went into my big career, move. That age. Big career. All right, we're back. Anyway, I was young still at this point, right? And I'm just at this point beginning my journey to face myself and to try and make these changes, as young as I was. And still, I'm almost double that age now. And it took me this long to arrive to the point that I have, to where I'm finally ready to walk in my shame and walk in my sin and do what needs to be done to say I want to be better for you, and I want you to be better for you. And if we all do that together, then we can be better for him. So I start working on myself. I start breaking myself down. I start analyzing and fixing and going through all kinds of things. And of course, along the way, it's never going to